Hello everyone. So in this video, we will be discussing the Simpson's rule. So Simpson's rule is under the numerical integration of the numerical methods. So this is another way of solving an integration or integrating an equation using the Simpson's rule. So Simpson's rule actually has two types, which is the first one is the Simpson's 1/3 rule or 1/3 rule, in which it involves this equation. We have the width, which is given to be b minus a, and we also have the average height, which is given to be f of x sub 0 plus 4 of f of x sub 1 plus f of x sub 2 divided by 6. So from here we have this graph, which is said to have the 3 points, which has 3 points, meaning to say, in a graph, you'll need to divide the graph in half. And that's how you can get the value for the middle point. So we also have the Simpson's 3/8 rule or 3/8 rule, which is given to have b minus a as the width, and we also have f of x sub 0. We also have plus 3 times f of x sub 1 plus 3 times f of x sub 2 plus f of x sub 3. So actually this equations for the Simpson's 1/3 rule and Simpson's 3/8 rule is just an upgrade or closely related to the trapezoidal rule. So basically, in solving for the Simpson's rule, we will also be applying the concept of the trapezoidal rule in this method. So unlike Simpson's 1/3 rule, Simpson's 3/8 rule should have 4 points, which should be this one and this one, and this is our lower limit and the upper limit. So this is how, or this are the concepts of the Simpson's 1/3 rule and Simpson's 3/8 rule. Now, how can we get the value of our x sub 0, x sub 1, x sub 2, and x sub 3 is now the question here. So let's start with an example. So we have here, for the given function f of x is equivalent to sine x dx, integrate using Simpson's 1/3 and 3/8 rules over the interval a is equal to 0 and b is equal to pi over 2. So meaning to say a is our lower limit and b is our upper limit. So from here, you can try to graph this one. Solving this one in Simpson's 1/3 rule. Let's try to solve this one first using Simpson's 1/3 rule. So we'll have, again, this is for Simpson's 1/3 rule. So again, we have, for the 1/3 rule, we have I is equivalent to b minus a multiplied by f of x sub 0 plus 4 times f of x sub 1 plus our f of x sub 2. And that is divided by 6. So this is now the equation for the Simpson's 1/3 rule. Now, given this, um, this is better if we graph the equation. So let's say we have here a graph, and this is so possibly this is our lower limit, this is pi over 2, and since again the Simpson's rule must have 3 points, so meaning to say we need to find the value of this one. So in order for us to find the value of that one, is we just have to subtract the b and the a. So we have b minus a divided by 2. So that is how we get the value of the center, or the point of the center. So we have pi over 2 minus 0 divided by 2, that is equivalent to pi over 4. So meaning to say, these values here are what we need to solve for the Simpson's one-third rule. So x sub 0 here will stand, or will be our x sub 1, x sub 0, and this one is our x sub 1, and the last limit or interval is our x sub 2. Now we need to find the value of our f of x sub 0, f of x sub 1, and f of x sub 2. So from the function that we have, meaning to say we need to substitute the x sub 0, x sub 1, and x sub 2 in our function. So let's try to answer this one. So for the f of x sub 0, we have the our x sub 0, which is equivalent to 0. So meaning to say, sine of 0 is equivalent to 0. You need to remember that the given points here are not in degrees, so you need to use, or you need to convert your calculators in radian mode. So again, we also have to find the f of x sub 1, which is equivalent to f of pi over 4. So sine of pi over 4 is equivalent to, this is equivalent to 0.707107. And for the last one, we have f of x sub 2, which is equivalent to f of pi over 2. So we have sine of pi over 2. Now, sine of pi over 2, that is equivalent to 1. So we already have the values that we will be needing later on in solving for the Simpson's one-third rule. Now, solving that one, we can already substitute the values that we got from our solving earlier. So we have I is equivalent to b minus a, in which our b is equivalent to pi over 2 minus our a, which is 0, and our f of x sub 0, which is equivalent to 0, plus 4 times our value of x sub 1, which is 0.707107, plus our x sub 2, which is 1. So that is divided by 6. Now, if you try to calculate this one, this is equivalent to 1.002280. So this is now the result of the integration using Simpson's rule. Again, if you try to check your answer, if this is approximately equivalent to the result of the sine x when integrated in a conventional way. So again, we have 0 to pi over 2 sine x dx. Now if you try to integrate this one, sine x, the integral of sine x is negative cos x, and that is from 0 to pi over 2. So substituting the limits, we have negative cos pi over 2 plus cos of 0, that is equivalent to 1. So as you can see, it is approximately the answer that we got from the Simpson's one-third rule is approximately equivalent to the answer when we solve the function or the equation in the conventional way of integrating. Now we also need to solve for the Simpson's 3 over 8 rule or 3/8 rule. So let's try to solve this one in here. So for the Simpsons 3 over 8 rule, so we have here Simpsons 3 over 8. So again, we have the function sine x dx. And for the Simpsons 3 over 8 rule, that it has the equation of I is equivalent to b minus a multiplied by f times f of x sub 0 plus 3 f of x sub 1 plus 3 f of x sub 2 plus f of x sub 3. Now, if you can remember from the discussion earlier, Simpson's 3/8 rule should involve 4 points in our graph, right? So that's why we have the x sub 0, x sub 1, x sub 2, and x sub 3. These functions here represents the 4 points in our graph. So we also need to find the values of x sub 1, x sub 2, but x sub 0 and x sub 3, we already know the values. So let's try to create a graph for that one. So again, this is 0 and this is pi over 2. This is already our x sub 0 and this is already our x sub 3. Now what we needed to do is we need to find the value of our x sub 1 and our x sub 2. So that is the x sub 1 and the x sub 2. Now, how can we find the value of this one if we only have this two values here, the upper and the lower limits? So, me personally, I create, in order for me to find the value of the x sub 1 and x sub 2 easily, is that I locate the center, in which we know that this is pi over 4, and then pi over 4 minus 0 divided by 3. That is how you get the result of this one. So from here, as you know, it has a line or strip from here as well, but is not significant in solving for the Simpsons 3/8 rule. So what we just need to find the value is the x sub 1 and the x sub 2. So after you find the value of this one, you need to multiply that by 2. So basically that is this one. So if you try to calculate this, this is already equivalent to pi over 6. So meaning to say, this one is pi over 6. And our x sub 2 is just multiply this by 2, because as you can see there's one increment. There's you need to increment that by 2 in order for you to get the result of this one. So pi over 6 times 2, that is just equivalent to pi over 3. So basically, we already got the result or the values for our x sub 1 and our x sub 2. So after we got the values, we can already find or solve for the f of x sub 0, f of x sub 1, and so on. So we have f x sub 0 is equivalent to the substitution to our function, which is sine x dx. So you still need to substitute the values that you have for x sub 0, which is 0. So meaning to say we have f of 0 is equivalent to sine of 0 is equivalent to 0. And we also have f of x sub 1, which is equivalent to f of pi over 6, which is equivalent to sine pi over 6. That is equivalent to 0.5. And f of x sub 2, which is equivalent to f of pi over 3. That is equivalent to sine of pi over 3, which is equivalent to 0.866025. And we also have the last one, which is our x sub 3, in which we already know the result. This is f of pi over 2, and we have sine of pi over 2, which is equivalent to 1. So after we have the values now for our x sub 0, f of x sub 1, f of x sub 2, and f of x sub 3, then we can already solve for the Simpson's 3/8 rule. So substituting the values that we got, so we have I is equivalent to our b, which is pi over 2 minus 0, and then multiply that by our f of x sub 0, which is 0, plus 3 times f of x sub 1, which is 0.5, plus 3 times our x sub 2, which is 0.866025, plus our f of x sub 3, which is 1. And that is divided by 8. So if you try to calculate this one again, then you'll get the result of 1.001005. So again, we already know that the integral of this one from 0 to pi over 2 is equivalent to 1. So as you can see, again, this is still approximately equivalent to the conventional way, or if you try to calculate sine x dx from 0 to pi over 2. So we already have the final result for Simpson's 3/8 rule, which is this one. So those are all the discussion for the Simpson's rule. We have Simpson's 1/3 rule, and we also have the Simpson's 3/8 rule. So if you try to compare the results, it has just a minimal amount of difference, in which for the 1/3 rule it's 002, and 3/8 rule it's 001. So I hope you have learned something from this video, and please don't forget to like and subscribe the video, and or subscribe my YouTube channel. And thank you very much, and have a great day.